So let's talk about my journey to entrepreneurship, right? I come from a family where it's called corporate America here, where everyone, the American dream is to get a job, go to school, get your degree, and then get a job. So I was born and raised by a single mom in Detroit, Michigan, and went away to college. My mom sacrificed a lot. She cashed in her retirement for me to go to college. And so I had a lot of pressure on me as it related to education and doing well, which I'm sure some of your parents have those expectations or had those expectations for you as well. And so I went to college with a very narrow vision of, okay, you graduate, you get your degree, you get a really good paying job, and then you be happy with that and you be content with that. Um, the market crashed around 2008, if you all remember that. Specifically, people with degrees couldn't find jobs. So my mother actually lost her job and could not find a position for quite some time. And so that required me to get a couple of different jobs. So at that time, I was working three jobs in college. I was a nanny, as well as I was going door to door selling paint, the paint that you would paint a house with. And I was also cleaning homes every single Saturday on top of a full load of college courses. And so I was exhausted. I felt like my time wasn't being measured for what I was worth. And I was just, I had a lot on my plate. And so I said, well, something's got to give. Something doesn't make sense. I'm working all of these hours, but I'm unable to attain a lifestyle here at college that allows me flexibility. I had limited time, I had limited money, and, I was also helping out at home. So I started to think about what I was great at. I was like, okay, what are my talents? What are my skills? What do I love to do? At heart, I am a creative. If you are a creative, I'm not sure if the chat is open, but if you're a creative, let me know in the chat box. If you're more analytical, technical, let me know in the chat box as well. But I'm both. I'm part creative and I'm part tech and analytical. So I started to think about, well, how can I mesh these two together? And so I got on Google one night in my college apartment and I started to put in creativity, different buzzwords that were coming up for me as I was brainstorming what I was great at. And so this word branding kept coming up. And so I was like, oh, branding, like I've heard of it, but I wanted to dig deeper. So started to do more research. Then I started seeing like graphic design and website coding and just different things in relation to branding, advertising, marketing, just so many different things. And I said, well, I could definitely see myself doing something like that. And so at that time, I dug more into the research and I said, well, what if I created a graphic design business? I'm like, I've never, learned graphic design. If you all remember Microsoft Paint, that was as far as I had went in terms of like graphic design. And so after learning what I needed to do to learn the basics, I really dug in. And if you all can guess what the number one resource, it's a free resource, but I went to YouTube to learn how to design logos, websites, um, marketing materials, you name it. And here I am still in college. So I taught myself those things for free right off of YouTube. And so after I taught myself, or I was teaching myself as I was learning, because I feel like we're all forever students, right? We're never done learning. So I posted something on my school's job board and I said, "Hi, I'm Megan. I am a marketing student here at college. And if you need help with your marketing, please let me know." A woman reached out to me and she said, "Hey, I'm thinking about launching a business. I would love to chat more about what you can offer me." So we met up for coffee and she said, "I think you can help me create a business." And here I am, just getting my feet wet and starting as a freelancer and my own business. But it was a breath of fresh air because that woman gave me an opportunity. And I used that opportunity to really fuel and push me into this journey of entrepreneurship, this journey I had never, deep dived into, or I had never had any experience in. And so I worked on a project. I taught myself as I went with the skills from YouTube. And for that first client, I created her a logo and a website. And so I used a ton of free resources. And this was, I want to say, in about 2012. Yeah, 2011, 2012, somewhere around that timeline. So I graduate college, you guys. You know, we're nearing toward the end, walking across the stage. I had, one client up under my belt. So near around the time of graduation, the woman who I completed the project said, "Hey, you did such a great job on my project. I'm going to refer you out to some good friends of mine who are lawyers and they have a law firm and they need marketing and branding." And I said, "Oh my gosh, like this is a big deal." Here I am, 21 years old, and I have an opportunity at another client. So I get my materials ready, right? So I scheduled a meeting with them and they said, "Hey, come into the office. We want to hear more about what you can offer." So I said, "Okay, this time around, I'm going to go with a pricing sheet. I'm going to go with packages that are structured so that they can select something." So that really positioned me as an expert. They were able to see everything I was able to offer. So I sit down at this big long table with three men who are lawyers. Here I am, like this little tiny college student who had only had one client, but I really positioned myself that I was an expert, even though I had only had one client. I actually showed them everything that I had executed with her. So they said, "Okay, we're going to go with the $2,000 package," right? That was like my highest package I had on there. And I found that number just based off of my research that I had seen on Google, right? So $2,000 at that time, you guys, um, it was life changing. Let me say that it was life changing because not only for the money, but I was able to see how much control and power that I had over the life that I wanted to live. Does that make sense? And that fueled a fire inside of me. That allowed me to see a different way of approaching entrepreneurship, really grabbing opportunities and doing my best, doing excellent work, and treating each project, each opportunity better than the last, right? So, like, really growing through each experience. So, I snagged them as a client. They ended up becoming my client for the next 2 years, you guys. So, I graduated college and I had them as a client. They ended up signing on to as a retainer client. And if you don't know what a retainer is, basically, retainer, they pay you a monthly fee for whether it's hourly services or a certain number of services per month. But you're guaranteed the retainer every single month. So, in a sense, I was on a 2 to 3 year contract with them, which They were my second official client. So around that time, right, I had this client, they're on retainer. I also had a job, you guys, right? Because I wanted to make my mom proud. I was kind of in that headspace of, I'm going to do the entrepreneurship thing on the side, but I'm going to work my 9 to 5 because this is why I went to school. This is why I've worked so hard over these past couple years, right? Because we want to make our parents proud, right? I know that resonates with you guys. So I worked at a real estate firm doing marketing and branding, exactly what I went to school with. My mom was pretty proud and things were going smooth. I was up for my annual review, you guys. My annual review, I had to sit in my boss's office and we went over the things that I did great at and the things that I could work a little bit better on. So my boss says to me, Megan, you are so great at what you do. He's like, I'm so proud of what you've accomplished, but I think you could be more entrepreneurial at your position. So I'm thinking, like, oh my gosh, he doesn't know that I'm running my own business on the side, and I am entrepreneurial. So he said, because of that, you're going to have to wait another year for your raise. So you're going to stay at where you're at, but this $3 raise that you're looking for, you're going to have to wait about a year. So I'm thinking about, just so many things are racing through my mind, like another year to get a raise that I felt like I deserved. I'm growing this company. And he said, yeah, another year. And I walked out of his office. I wanted to cry. I didn't cry at work, but when I got home, I cried hard because I knew my worth. I had experienced those wins and in my business. And so when you feel like you are undervalued, it can affect your confidence and things like that. So I made a really bold decision, everyone. I quit my job, my first job ever, straight out of college after just a year. And I had never seen anyone quit their jobs around me. I knew no one that quit their jobs. So it was risky. It was a lot of fear around that decision that I made, but I felt like it was the right choice. And not just that, write this down. It was a calculated decision. Okay, I want you to put calculated decision in your notes because a calculated decision, you have to ensure that there's a strategy around when you're going to leave your job, if you're going to leave your job, and how long you can be sustainable, right? So at that time, even though I had quit, my business was making the same amount of money that I was making at my job. Does that make sense? So you see a lot of people and they say, I'm leaving my job. Well, it's like, okay, can you still afford to live the lifestyle? You still have bills and you don't want to go backwards. Like we want to grow and evolve. So we want to move forward. So I recommend that you just really strategize on that decision or set a goal date. If you're thinking about full-time entrepreneurship, kind of set that date in your mind and work towards that goal. But 2015, which seems like yesterday, I started full-time entrepreneurship in my branding agency. So I hope that gives you background on my story. Okay, so these are the ventures that I have founded and created ever since 2015. So the first is Creatively Flawless, which you're going to hear a lot about today, because this was the foundation that allowed me to just really grow and develop as an entrepreneur, and just learn so many aspects about business development and marketing and branding. So you're going to hear a lot about Creatively Flawless. Creatively Flawless, it's a graphic design agency providing branding services like logos, websites, social media design, consulting. To give you guys some more background, I work with a lot of major retailers or entrepreneurs who are based in major retailers. So here in America, Walmart, Meijer, Target, CVS. These are some of the different brands that my clients are placed in. So I do everything from social media campaigns to project management, product development. I work with manufacturers, and it's a really great, amazing experience, but also stressful at times, because here I am, I started in 2015. So I learned everything on my own. It wasn't like I had this backing of a company where I learned the ropes of how to build a design agency. So a lot of trial and error, a lot of giving myself grace and space to be excellent, but to also fail, and get back and start over again. So yes, creatively flawless, you will hear a lot about today. Themology, which I consider my purpose project. This was really birthed out of seeing clients from Creatively Flawless really need resources and support in their entrepreneurial endeavors. So I launched a co-working space for women focused on collaboration through social impact experiences, events, also a shared co-working space, which we had for 2 years, pre-COVID. We actually closed down during COVID-19, just for safety precautions and things like that. So that is definitely a purpose project of mine. And then last but not least, this is, I would say this is a new concept. I launched this during the pandemic. We're going to talk about things you can do, or ways you can monetize during this time right now. There's a lot of opportunity that sometimes I don't think we realize that we have, but the pandemic changed a lot of things. And so the Influencership is a digital course that I launched to my community where I teach entrepreneurs how to be influencers. So if there's that beauty brand or that athletic brand or an Apple iPhone brand that you want to work with, I teach entrepreneurs how to land those deals and those contracts, for their personal brand specifically. So excited, to share more about. So, we're going to dive into personal branding first. You're seeing on the screen one of my clients, Zara Northover. If you see that ball that she's holding right now, she's actually an Olympian. Okay. And um, she participated in the Olympics, I want to say about 10, 15 years ago. Um, but she is also a motivational speaker, and she's also a mortgage banker. So she wanted to put everything together for her personal brand. So, what we're going to be going over today in terms of personal branding, getting intentional about your personal brand. I want you guys to know that you matter. Your personal brand is so important to this world. We're going to dive into your personal brand web. I'm going to explain more about what that is, but this is going to give you clarity on who you are. I know it may seem like, oh my gosh, I'm a brand. You are a brand since birth. Okay. Next, we're going to go over the visual identity, which is one of my favorite parts because it's the aesthetically appealing part, right? It's the thing that reels people in. We're going to work on your legacy title, and then we're also going to work on your personal business development, which is different from your company's business development. Okay, so let's get intentional. So I keep saying you are a brand at birth, right? So ultimately, what I'm saying is that your personal brand is your legacy. Okay. So if you think about branding, you think about logos and taglines and websites and all that good stuff, right? Yes, that is a part of branding, but your personal brand is really who you are and what you offer to the world, right? So important, right? Just think about if all the people didn't take their personal brand of importance, then how far will we be, right? People make the world go round. People make the world a better place. And that's why I said it's so important for you to really hone in and get clear about your personal brand because we want to serve the world on a gold platter, right? We want to serve the world, how we can help, what we can do to change someone else's lives. So I want you to start thinking of ways you can impact others with the work you do throughout your life. Okay. So for me, I'm a creative. I love to connect with women. I love to share about experiences. So some of the things that I love is I love to speak. I love to design. I love to help women create businesses that fuel their dream life, right? So start thinking of ways you can impact people. Here's what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to connect a dollar sign to this impact work, okay? So in your notes, if you need to put purpose over profitability, then you do that, because here's what I want to say: if you are doing the work that matters, the money is going to come organically. Okay. That's why I want you to think about the impact as the foundation. How can you specifically impact someone else's lives through your skill sets, your gifts, um, or just something that you're really, really, really great at? Okay. Next, I want you to start developing healthy habits in terms of your personal brand. This goes right in alignment with time management and calendar blocking. And what I specifically mean by that, I spend at least 1 hour per day on my personal brand. And that's grown over time. Obviously, when I was in college, I wasn't spending 5 hours a week on my personal brand. But what I realized is that the more intentional time that I spent on my personal brand, the more I seen it grow, right? The more I seen I was able to impact others. Okay. So a couple goals that I have, and I'm very transparent, you guys. That's why I said if you have a question, write it down so you don't forget. Um, I'm 31 right now, and it was my goal to sit on 3 advisory boards by the time that I hit 30, right? I had no idea how I was gonna make it happen, but I just said that I would spend an hour a day, whether it was connecting with people through LinkedIn or working on my biography or launching my website or whatever it may be. I wanted to do something at least for an hour a day. Okay. Investing in yourself, which I think is really important. That may come in the form of reading a book, spending time on your personal brand, taking a course, or learning something new, but definitely investing in yourself. Actually, some ways that I invest in my personal brand is I get mentors, right? So, mentors you can find online, you can cultivate relationships digitally. It's a little bit tougher, but it's definitely possible. But normally, what happens is that if you can create an organic relationship with someone online, you can turn that into a real relationship. So, what has happened for me is that I keep a rapport with people who I feel could serve as my mentor, and then I eventually, fly out to them so that we can meet for a day. But yeah, I definitely have invested in the past on, coming or going to see my mentors, and vice versa. I have mentees who, let's just say, one of my mentees, she lives in Chicago, right? Chicago is about a 5 hour drive from Detroit, which is where I live. And so she'll come up maybe once a year. She'll make that 5 hour drive, but she really believes in connecting and kind of going to that next level of enhancing the mentee mentor relationship. Um, so yes, finding mentors that can advise and support you. Okay, so this is how we get intentional about that personal brand. Okay, so creating a personal brand web, right? I want us to start here at the foundation. And I know this may be like, okay, what is a personal brand web? A personal brand web are the things that you care about, the values and the platforms where you stand upon that you wholeheartedly believe in. Okay. So for my brand web, you guys can literally draw this out on paper. I do this at least twice a year. with my personal brand because things evolve, things change. Personally, you may grow as a woman or a man, right? Once you get closer towards your purpose, things change. Okay. So you're going to see my brand pillars. Brand pillars are your values, right? These are the things that are most important to you. These are the things that ultimately define your life. Okay. Um, so the most important things for me and really stand out, and I wouldn't say that it's limited to this, but these are the things that if someone looked at my brand, this is what they could pull from it. But entrepreneurship, empowerment, womanhood, mentorship, and family legacy. So those are the things that are primarily what my brand is about. Okay. So I want you to think of your top five. If you have a little bit more, that's totally fine. And we are going to be sending this presentation after the session today. So if you need to reference back to this, you will have it. Okay, so after that, this is where your brands and offerings go. Okay, so this is how we separate ourselves from our companies. Okay, so you get a lot of people who they kind of intermix everything, right? So they'll have, let's just say you're an artist and your artistry, you kind of infuse that with your personal brand. Or let's say you launched a food truck and you start posting food on your page. So here's what I want you all to think about. I want you to think about the business lifespan. Okay. And the reason why I want to bring this up is because I want to be transparent. You, as a whole human being with a purpose, you are going to have to understand that a business may only serve you during a certain time in your life, right? That business may be 2 years, it may be five, it may be 10, it may be 20 years, right? But you want to allow yourself to grow as a personal brand while also that business growing. Or if that business no longer serves you during a certain chapter in your life, you want to be able to continually move on without feeling stuck. Okay. And I see this so much, right? Where an entrepreneur has created a business, but they only identify themselves as the business, right? But internally, they've changed, right? Let's just say they were a writer and they wrote articles and now they're like, okay, now I want to own a publishing company. But they're like, I still define myself as a writer. You can still be a writer, but now you are evolving into a publisher. Okay. So I want to give you guys those ideas to give yourself the opportunity to grow, right? Don't corner yourself into one business and define yourself by one business, right? So I think a great person to bring up or a great example is Winfrey. Oprah has multiple brands, right? Um, if you know of any of her brands, go ahead and put it in the chat box. But some that come off the top of my mind are the OWN Network. Super Soul Sunday has kind of evolved, even though it's a show, it's kind of evolved into its own brand, right? Sometimes she'll do tours. What else does she have? She has O Magazine, right? So these are all different entities, but then you look at Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey can truly create anything she wants because she hasn't cornered herself into just one thing, right? She started out, think about this, you guys. She started out as a journalist, okay? And now she's a billionaire with multiple different brands. She's a serial entrepreneur. So she's definitely not just a journalist. So I want us to think of ourselves in that way. Does that make sense? I want you guys to get excited because it really unlocks something inside of us when we understand that, oh, I can be multifaceted. Oh, I don't have to be just that one thing, right? Like I don't have to be Meagan, the designer. right? Even though I taught myself graphic design earlier on, now I can be Megan the activist or Megan the mentor, right? I can do these other things that I'm passionate about. Okay, so at the bottom, you're gonna see the different things that I offer. So I have my personal brand, where I do speaking and influencing, Creatively Flawless, where I do design and consulting, Femology, which is the co working space, where I do events and partnerships, and then the Influencership, where I teach entrepreneurs how to land endorsement deals, right? So I don't want to be in a box and I don't want you all either. So let's start on this brand web. If you have questions about the brand web, go ahead and write it down and we can save it for the end of this segment. Okay, visual identity. This is one of my favorites. I am just really, really passionate about that. So once you have done your brand web, right? Now it's time to kind of like hone in and round things out. And this is where you get that professional touch to your brand where it makes people want to trust you, right? It makes people kind of look at your brand and say, ooh, like I want to be a part of that, right? Not only is it strategically does it sound good and the wording and the positioning is right, but it looks good too, right? That's why when we go into um, a major retailer and we're deciding between two brands, one's pricier, has a brand name, one's lower price and not a brand name, even though they have the same exact ingredients or the same exact formulas, we'll go toward the branded one just because it's branded. So this is what visual identity allows you to do. So visual identity normally consists of a mood board. The mood board kind of sets the tone. It's all the inspiration for your brand. Color palette. Color palette can be based off of your personality. It can be based off of, so like for my brand, you guys will see like a muted nude and pinks. And if you can see in the background of my office matches my personal brand as well, but these colors just really, really define me. And they've grown over time as well. My brand colors used to be like hot pink. And once I really started to indulge into my womanhood, the color changed. I said, well, I'm not that college student anymore. So yeah, it evolved. But yeah, color palette. And then your logo, which can always be your name for your personal brand. So, who you're seeing on the screen right now is Dr. Lornika. She's a client of mine from the Bahamas, and she is actually a transformational life coach. She also has a PhD, and she also speaks. So she does a couple different things. And then this is her logo for her personal brand. Last but not least, professional headshots. I think those always, really set the tone. And you can utilize your headshots for your Facebook page, LinkedIn specifically, as well as any other marketing materials like flyers or um, resumes. And for entrepreneurs, I don't call them resumes. I call them personal brand one sheets. So I'm going to show you guys my one sheet right now. Okay, so what you all are seeing on the screen right now is my mood board. So my mood board is on the left. You'll also see my color palette in the center. And then on the right side, you are all going to see my personal brand one sheet, right? So even though I am an entrepreneur, I still want to have some material, right? If someone wants to get to know me or learn more about my experiences, my achievements, my mission, or my vision, I have this ready-made one sheet that I send everyone. And so it really grasps everything that I can do. And it puts me in my best light, right? So I don't have a resume because that's more so of a traditional form if you're applying for a job. But normally I'm pitching myself or I'm thinking about ways that I can collaborate with someone or how we can give value to one another. So I highly recommend that if you are interested in growing your personal brand, that you have a personal brand one sheet. So yeah, you'll see crisp imagery, you'll see my color palette, just so everything's consistent across the board, even like down to your email signature. You know, my email signature matches my brand, but I think that when people see that, they get the impression that she means business, right? And that's what we want people to feel. That's we want people to feel like, okay, I can trust her or I can trust him. They are going to excel at whatever opportunity I give them. Okay. Hope I'm making sense, you guys. I'm so passionate about this. Okay. So let's continue evolving in this realm of the personal brand. I want you to define who you are and what you do. And I want you to do this in a very unique way. I want you to define who you are and what you do by creating a unique title for who you are. Okay. So in 2018, I was going through some shifts in my brand. I was no longer resonating with Megan the designer, Megan the website guru. I was really evolving into this personal brand of empowerment and helping women succeed in life and business, right? So, like, I was expanding, and those titles that I previously had were very limiting for me. They weren't defining all that I could do. So, I want you to start thinking of a dynamic title that defines who you are in terms of your legacy and skill set. One of the easiest ways to do this, you guys, is to think about yourself 10 to 20 years from now and to think about, okay, can this title serve me from here? Okay. And so it'll be easier if you can have three titles. Like if you look at my example, Megan Ward, women's entrepreneurial activist, brand strategist, and speaker. These are like my top three things, right? So if I want to be known for something, these are the top three things that are going to work for me. Okay. So if you need to limit it to three or two, or let's just say you have one, that's totally fine as well. But yeah, who you are in terms of your legacy and your skill set. Remember, do not put yourself in a box. If you want to mention as like a secondary or third title that is more niche, you totally can. But that first title, I really want to see something that encompasses you and applies to you 10, 15, 20 years from now. Okay, your online real estate, right? We have our brand strategy, we know our values, we have our visual identity, we have our title. So we're almost ready to rock and roll. What's next? So, next is being found, right? Next is really giving people that opportunity to see you as a credible person, right? And the first thing that people do these days is they Google us. Go right to google.com and they type in your name, and whatever comes up, that's going to give you an impression, right? If we think about first impressions, these are the norms of first impressions these days. So, first and foremost, I want you to get your domain name and email. Okay. So, for us here in the United States, a lot of us, we use GoDaddy to get our domain names. So, go ahead and see if your name is available and start utilizing that versus a general Gmail, right? So if you want to go far with your personal brand, these are very foundational investments, right? So here in the United States, I want to say a domain name is about $14 a year. Um, so yes, I would say that is a must, and it really positions you, as you're serious about your personal brand, or you get more serious about it. Now, I remember buying my domain name around 2018. So not that long ago, just 3 years ago, you guys. And now I can't see myself without having a domain name. But the good thing about domain names is that once you get it, you can attach it to a website. And when people type in your name, you want your website to come up. But moving on to website, do you have a professional personal website that showcases who you are and what you do? Okay, so if you are an entrepreneur and let's just say you consult, you do photography, and you also cook, right? You would want to feature those different things on your website. Okay, so we definitely want to make sure you have that up after you have your domain name and email address. Last but not least, social media. I do want to mention making sure that your name is consistent across the board, right? That you're not going by a different name on social media than you are on your website domain name or your email domain name. Just kind of making sure that you have consistency, right? If you are going by your first name and your middle name, or your first name and your last name, or you have a unique brand name, I would just say be consistent across the board. Preferably without any dots or underscores or things like that. You always want something that's like clean and crisp, right? If we look at big brands, do we see big brands with dots, in their names or underscores in their names? No. So, in terms of modeling, that's something that we can take away from them, is that normally simplicity is key, right? We want people to be able to type in the characters as is and be found, right? So, social media wise, are you active on the primary channel where your audience is present? Okay. So, if you have an audience that is very active on Facebook, you should be a part of Facebook groups. You should have a Facebook fan page or Facebook personal brand page. And these are all things that I launched, eventually, right? Um, I was so I was so passionate about my company that I kind of forgot about me, and not realizing that I was the engine that was fueling my company. People wanted to work with me. Yes, they wanted great services, but they knew that they would get a great service because I was spearheading the company. So, personal branding, this can really open up doors for more clients and other opportunities. If you look on this photo, this is actually my real website that I designed. But this website really positioned me as an expert in my field, and it made people take me more seriously. So, highly, highly recommend. So, yes. This is going to be one of the last slides of the personal branding. I know we are moving through this, but part one is the longest. So we'll take Q&A right after this slide. But be your own business development manager. Remember, I said I spend an hour a day on my personal brand. I'm also using social media as a tool where I share valuable content. I'm growing my community. I'm sharing more about the projects that I'm on and what I love about the projects. It's also a way to make meaningful connections, right? I've met mentors online. I've met different people from all over the world where we've connected, and we've been able to give value to one another. A good friend of mine, she is actually a CEO of a conglomerate of companies. So she has about 5 or 6 companies under one, and we met online, and we share value in terms of our experiences as entrepreneurs and CEOs. But yeah, definitely making meaningful connections. And so once people see, like, oh my gosh, like he or she, they're serious about what they do, or they seem great at what they do, people want to be connected with that. And so just embodying that in all ways through our branding. Another way, we want to be our own business development manager because we want to drive people to our website. We want people to see everything that we can do. We want people to purchase services or, um, if you have an offering, we want them to be able to get that value from you, right? That's you utilizing your gifts and your skill sets to give something to the world. Um, Also, pitching yourself for opportunities that can further your career. Every quarter, I pitch myself for different opportunities. Just to name a few, some back in the past, it was different awards. Here in Detroit, we have something called Cranes 20 in their 20s. We have like a lot of social impact awards that I wanted to be a part of to showcase more of my work for women's empowerment. Now it's more so speaking opportunities and sharing my knowledge about branding, kind of like what I'm doing right now. Also, endorsement deals. So if you want to be an influencer, or let's just say you have a specialty in sports. Let's say you work out, you're into fitness, and you want to work with Nike. Nike is so possible, but you have to position yourself and pitch yourself for those types of opportunities. And then last but not least, ensuring that you are making your value and expertise known. Here's the thing, you guys, everyone wants to be heard and seen, right? Right. But you have to want to be heard and seen even when you don't feel like no one is watching. Okay. So I started out on Instagram way in the early days, when people didn't take it as serious. But I was showcasing different projects I was working on and, you know, things I was doing in college at that time. And so even though I felt like, I was posting it because I was happy about it. Um, Eventually people started to see what I was doing, and that converted into clients over the years as well.